Hello. I'm trying to figure out streaming. It's still complicated for me. I'm just gonna dive right into what I'm working on today. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I have been seeing in groups these things called diaper pods. And they weren't a thing when my kids were in diapers. So we only just had wet bags, and there were various styles of wet bags. There were wet bags that had flat bottoms, and there were wet bags that, were diaper pail liners, like really large ones. There were kinds that clipped over a towel bar, kinds that, hung off like a rope hook or off a doorknob. And then there were like the ones that you had in your diaper bag. But back then there weren't these things that held just diapers that were like decorative or were for mostly dry diapers, or you had to have one for dry and one for wet, and they have a snap on the side to clip them to a diaper bag, or I don't even know what they're for, honestly. But they're just a tote bag. They're a bag that has a strap on the side rather than the top, and they're kind of in a square or rectangular shape rather than like a round duffel bag. But they're sewn pretty much like, any square-ended bag. We do very similar things when we sew a lot of other things. It's just a technique. So what I've got here is some bias tape that is like 3/4 inch bias tape, and I'm going to use part of it for the sides. Some styles have just a little bit right near the zipper for, clipping like a duffel bag strap to. I'm pretty sure that's what it's for. That's typically what that's for. So I'm going to cut some like 3 to 4 inch long pieces of the pre-made just cotton bias tape of that. But if you're going to do it with pull, you can do it with pull, if you're going to make the whole thing out of pull instead of cotton. But I'm just going to make it like a regular old bag so I can use it for other things. And I am thinking that I will make a video tutorial with pull doing the same kind of thing. And, maybe doing something to cover up the inner seam. We could, work on ways to add a separate bag to the outside to have like a wet bag zipper pocket on the side, but then the dry stuff held in the middle so that it's, 2 separate areas for wet and dry. There's lots of things we can do. So yeah, so let's start. I've got these little sections of bias tape here, and I'm just gonna sew down one side to close them up so they don't pop open. You can sew down both sides so it looks even, but it doesn't matter. And this is basically just gonna be like a little loop that's gonna be sewn. And then I have some that I ironed fairly flat that I'm going to be using for the little snap strap on the sides. And from the photos that I've seen, because I've never seen a diaper pod in person, they look like they have one side that's short and one side that's long, and they just have snaps to snap to each other so that you can clip them onto something or hang them over something. Yeah, so I'm just going to take this and fold it in half, and whatever you want the length of the shorter side to be versus the longer side. It's kind of up to you. I think I'll do it about 4 inches. And then you kind of make this like you would do, any strap for any purse, or, like for an apron, for example. It's the same kind of thing. And then for the longer side, how much you want that, how long you want that strap to be. You just want a little one, or do you want it to be a big one that go over your shoulder? I'm going to keep it small and have it just be more like a handle. Just a little bit of give. And I'll make a pattern for this with numbers and, inch measurements and stuff. But for now, we're just kind of winging it, like most of the stuff I do for the first time. And I kind of wonder where this came about. Like, I wonder how these little rectangular bags became popular. If anybody knows, let me know. Like, if there was a company that did it first, or if there was like a work-at-home mom who did it first and people copied her. I'd love to know. I didn't do any research, but if you guys know, let me know. So I've got these little pieces here, and I'm just going to sew around and down so that it's, all sewn together. I'm just going to use a straight stitch fairly long. And this is just to kind of close it up. And this is going to be tucked into a seam, so it doesn't have to have a finished edge or anything like that. And since I'm making this for myself, I'm not using contrasting thread, so it might be a little hard to see. I'm using brown thread. But when I make a tutorial, I'll use contrasting thread. And things like this, they're all made the same way. It's just about how you finish things and like various techniques for sewing. You know, whether it's, you know, actually, take a little segue here. When I make like purses or heavier duty totes, I put a little bit of a thick interfacing in that little strap piece so that when you sew it down, you know, maybe the iron-on kind, so that there's a little more structure to it. But I'm just making this one more like an apron drawstring, or apron tie. But you can make them more structured with a little bit of an interfacing, or even a piece of fleece if you don't have any interfacing inside it, just to give it a little more padding. And so there's the first one. This is going to be the shorter side. And we're going to put 2 snaps at the top after we're all done to make it so that it snaps to the other piece. And we're going to make the other piece the same way. And if you've ever made, you know, like a makeup bag or a purse or even just a basic tote, these are all techniques that you use for all those things. Oops. And I'm just going to be using the straight stitch for this whole thing, I think. So there's really nothing very fancy that I have to do, so this should be pretty basic. My 2 little edges. Get the piece I dropped. And then these I'm just going to sew down one side because the rest of it's all going to be hidden inside a seam. And you can sew down both sides if you want it to look, you know, even or whatever, but I don't particularly care. I'm just going for quick since I'm streaming and not editing. So what's everybody working on right now? Is there anything fun you're working on? So there's my little strap pieces, and we'll set those aside until we're ready for them. And then what I've got here is I decided to do sort of an accent trim, so mine's not as boring, not just one color or one pattern. I have this pre-quilted fabric that I had from making doll, like ergo style doll carriers many years ago. I used it for the inside layer of them, and then I had, you know, just like a print on the outside. And so I had a little bit left, and it was pretty much a, you know, a good size for this. I made it 28 inches by, I think, 18 inches. I think that's right. Yeah. So it's 28 by 18, and I did that because when you're wrapping it around this way, it was like the right size, seeming to be a pod when it was all assembled. So like if you were gonna do it like that, it would be kind of like a big rectangle. You could probably do it like 24 for like a diaper size pod. I made it because I want to be able to use it as like a little duffel. But I think that 24 by even 14 would be a really good diaper pod size, but I'm making mine a little bit larger, a little bit bigger of an inside. I'm going to use it for like storing things for the kids in the car or something like that, maybe for road trips. That's why I'm going to use the little clip-on side to, you know, clip onto the back of the chair or something like that, make it more useful for me. But I think that 24 by 14 would be a really good dimension. So we'll do that when I do the video tutorial. But I did 28 by 18 to make it a little bit bigger. And I got these pieces of a print. This is a print by Sosuri, like so, and then Suri, like sorcery, but Sosuri. And she did this great stained glass Totoro print that has a nice matching brown in it. So I thought that would be really cool. And I think that I will put the brown that matches this better on the outside. So this is the darker of the two. So my inside will be this lighter brown, and my outside will be this darker brown. And I'm going to take my little Totoro print, and so that I don't have to finish the edge, I have taken it and I have ironed down a 1/2 inch on both sides, and I have made it 1 inch longer than half of the total, and then I'm going to take it and sew the edge over the edge to finish off. So let's see if I can get an idea of what I was going to do here. I'm going to tuck this in, and then just have this folded over, and then I'm going to have my zipper sewn down that side so that this thicker fabric doesn't have to get sewn, you know, folded when it's sewn to the zipper. And it'll kind of finish it off, and it'll hide the edges. And I'm just going to clip that in place for now since I'm not sewing it to the zipper yet. You can also pin it, but for now I'm just going to clip it. And I'm going to do that to both sides so that it's on both sides. It's like the upper half will be this pattern, but you can all just do it one color as well, or one pattern, one piece of fabric. If you're doing one piece of quilting cotton, you could do like some interfacing and then put like a liner, like a solid color liner on the inside instead. But since I'm using this, I'm kind of just using what I have around. And I'll make the tutorial with a pull one, and then we'll just do it all one layer with a printed pull or a solid pull. If you wanted to make this a little longer, you could fold in your edge too, but I'm not worried because it's going to be kind of hidden by the edge of the zipper anyway. My words aren't working today. My brain is on non-speaking mode, non-verbal mode. You guys ever get like that? Where your words don't come out right? I have that problem all the time. I have a really hard time coming up with the right words. Whenever I say the wrong words around my kids, I always just go, you know me and words. My daughter goes, they're no. Okay, so I've got this lovely little trim that I'm going to have on the top half. And you can just pin that down and then just sew them together. I've got a pin somewhere. I have them somewhere. Do you remember where? They're there. I haven't been in my sewing room for like a week. I don't know where my usual box of pins has gone to. I have other ones, but that's not my usual ones. They're probably in a drawer. So I'm just going to pin this down in a couple spots just to keep it flush. You could use some sort of like a spray adhesive or something like that to keep it really nice if you wanted to as well. People who are, you know, big quilters, they'll probably have a lot of tricks to do this sort of thing that I've never done. I've never done a quilted bag before. I've done like, you know, accented bags, but I've never done a quilted bag. And one of the other moms in my son's class, you know, one of the moms of the kids in my son's class, she does these elaborate quilted bags. They're so cool. I've never done anything like that, so that's pretty neat. Maybe we'll have to try that sometime. But she's got an amazing sewing room and like so much quilting cotton. I have very little quilting cotton. I mostly do apparel. Okay, I'll do similar pins in a couple spots here. Aw, everybody left. Come back when I'm done pinning. The pinning is the most boring part. Since nobody's here now, I will just delete this part out. I will skip from the cutting pieces to the sewing parts. Okay, I'm gonna do this on both sides. I'm just prepping the pinning stuff now. If you want to come back in like 15 minutes probably, I'll actually be at the sewing part and I'll re-explain what I did. When I upload this, I'll edit it down a little bit to get rid of all this boring pinning part. I didn't want to pre-prep it though because I wanted to show the process, but I didn't want to, you know, I don't want to have multiple and different stages of assembly. That would be kind of silly. At least I thought it would be. Also, I don't want to make that many. I just want to make a couple. I'll make this one and then I'll make a pull one and then I'll give the pull one away to somebody. Or I guess we could use it for like our stuff after kayaking or something, like to hold wet things in the car. That would work, I suppose. Just a basic travel wet bag. But I don't want to make two of them. What's everybody else working on right now? What projects do you have that you're working on? Okay, so we've got this basic kind of accent piece pinned on. And I'm just going to sew it down just along the edge here to my quilted piece. Just to kind of make it one piece, basically. This is all just kind of the pre-prep that you do with any project that you're working on. And I'm not sewing mine super close to the edge, but you can sew it as close to that edge as you want. You can also fold it this way, sew in the seam, and then fold it back on that sewn seam so it's just totally flush. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. Actually, I'll do that on the other side just to show that method. That's a good idea. Show a couple different methods of sewing things down. I don't care if it's symmetrical for my own use. I'm not selling it or gifting it or anything. Okay, so I've got that one just sewn down with a little edge. And I'm gonna do the other one folded. I'm gonna unpin it and fold it because that's good to show multiple techniques. I think that's a good idea. I like it when I can do different techniques in one thing so people can see lots of different ways to do something. So I'm going to take out one of these so I don't lose my location, and I'm going to fold it back, and I'm going to pin it down again but not moving it so that I don't end up in a different spot. And I'll do the same thing on the other end. And then I can do the ones in the middle. You could also draw a line with some chalk or something like that as a guide. Or washable pen if you're going to be washing it. But I'm just kind of eyeballing it. There we go. So now I've got this crease from where I ironed it, and I'm going to sew along that crease. Just a tiny bit inset from it. And then I'm just going to fold it back on itself so that I get a flush line there. And that crease is just going to be my sewing guide. And you can sew with the pins there, but I don't like risking scratching my feet. I did it once upon a time and now I'm paranoid. Oh, I am caught on my feed dogs. I don't know why. Let's try that again. And this is going to be completely hidden, so it doesn't matter that I went back. I don't know why I keep getting caught. I don't know what's going on here. Just snagging. There we go. And that is going to be a completely hidden seam, so I'm totally not worried about it. Who cares if it's ugly, right? Let's trim off that excess piece that got caught. Just going to tie a little knot on the inside so it doesn't snag on anything. You can use some fray stop or something too. You can also top stitch it when you're done to completely cover up any mistakes. Okay, so there's my seam. And then at this point you just fold it back over your line. And now you get this totally flush with no seam showing. See? On this one there's absolutely no thread, no seam. And on the other side it's just like a little top stitching. So that's two different ways that you can do something like adding an accent to a bag or really to anything. And then for the top, since I have it folded, I'm going to sew it just directly to the zipper. I'm not going to be sewing it like I typically do with a wet bag where I sew it on one side and then I turn it and then I top stitch one side. I'm going to just be sewing it directly to the top of the zipper. So I'm going to switch to my zipper foot or to, you know, something where you can get in a little closer. You can sew it further away too. You don't have to have the zipper right up against the, you don't have to have the fabric right up against the teeth of the zipper. You can have it further back. It's really not necessary. It's just an, you know, an attractive thing. It's like if you want it to just be fabric or if you want more of the zipper edges shown, like if you were doing a dress with like, you know, some sort of a different texture or different like shininess, you would definitely want the fabric to go right up to it, like more of like a hidden zipper. But for like something like a bag, I'm not worried about it either way. There's actually lots of different ways to sew on zippers. It's kind of funny. Especially if you're doing like jacket zippers versus like bag zippers. Okay, so initially, you could also iron it a little more and get it a little flatter. My little accent piece. I've got my little zipper here. Just got this basic gray zipper that I saved off of, I think, a set of sheets. I tend to repurpose zippers a lot. And I'm just kind of going to center it in the middle. It's a little longer than the fabric. You don't want it to be shorter than the fabric. You can pin it down. Just use the same pins that I was using with those and just do one at a time. And it's up to you how close you want it to be. You can also do a hidden zipper where you have it folded over and then you sew down and then you flip it back. But since I'm doing the style with the, well, actually I could do that. I could do it just folded on the one side of this and then flip the whole thing over, but I'm not gonna do that this time. So many options. I'm just gonna kind of bump it very close up to the edge, but not right up to it. I'm not gonna have any overlap. Improvised sewing. If you want me to plan something out, wait for a video. For live streams, I just play around. But during live streams, you can ask any questions or we can talk about things that you're working on or, You can ask, you know, for a custom tutorial. You can also join my Discord and ask for that kind of stuff. I'm just here to do a little bit of something for fun and then be available to you guys live if you want. This is probably the biggest thing I've tried to sew with the camera here. I think I'm going to go over a little bit. Right about there. Sink my needle, then I'm gonna send my zipper down, get it out of my way, and then line everything back up again. And then drop my foot and resume. Am I on camera okay? Let me put it a little closer. It's harder with the bigger objects. And I'm just going slow and steady. Make sure this is all flush. If you used some spray adhesive or something like that, you wouldn't have to worry about it puckering. I just don't want to pull it unevenly. Get this lined up nice and flush. A little bit of a pull there. Okay, so there's my little nice flat, no seam on the bottom, right up to the zipper on the top. You can go and do a second one if you want, or you can use a double needle and get a nice double line there. Make it really reinforced, since depending on what you want to have in it. If you want to have a heavy item in there, you might want to reinforce the zipper seam. But we're just going to be doing it one for now. I might go back and, I don't know. Haven't decided. How do I want to do it? Let me make sure it's durable. You can also go and trim out any edges that are, fraying on the inside here. You can go and trim out any edges of strings, and you can go with some fray stop. Just so things don't catch in the zipper later on. You could also, like I said, you could serge that edge, or you could fold it under. Just do a little bit longer of a piece and then have enough to fold it under. So if you had like a 1/4 inch more or a 1/2 inch more on that fabric, you could have folded it under before sewing it together. And that would have both covered up the edge of the quilting piece or the quilted piece, and then also the edge of your woven. But I'm just going quick today. And I didn't want to use too much of that fabric up because I only had a little bit. I like to just kind of trim out anything that's a little uneven. But yeah, like serging it or folding it under would get rid of that issue. Or if you're doing pull, it doesn't matter because it's no fray. Or if you're using any sort of a knit, it doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm gonna open this zipper up a bit. And now we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. Make sure that it's lined up at the end. And I'm going to put a clip down here at the very end so the zipper stays together because I don't have it sewn across. And then you can completely unzip it so that it's just the one piece. That's it. I think I might switch to my regular foot and just use the edge of the foot as my guide because I think I like having the wider set stitch here anyway. So yeah, you don't need any fancy foot at all. I just was doing that because I wasn't sure, but I think that I'm just going to use my universal foot. Try to decide the best way to go about this. I should have done the inside first. Just gonna work it around. How do I want to do this? I should have put the zipper the other way. I should have had this on that side. I wasn't thinking. Now I've messed it up. Okay, well for next time, do it the other way first. But I was not thinking, and I have now I'm having to figure out how to do this the other way. I can do it inside out, and that would work, but then I wouldn't be able to see the top. I guess I'll just do that. Does it really matter? I get nervous in front of the camera, okay? Sink my needle, lift up my foot, pull my zipper a little further. I'll go a little further first. It's hard when you can't see. Makes you wish you just used a jacket zipper. When you mess up on camera. Don't laugh at me, don't laugh at me. I bet you were all noticing me doing it backwards and didn't even say anything. And I was just not even paying attention. Line it up. Okay. Crisis averted. You would never even know that I had no idea that I was messing up at the beginning. Look at that. Perfect. Okay. Needle still in there. Oh, pins all gone. Perfect. Okay, so now it's kind of like a regular wet bag. It's kind of like, you know, the inside out wet bags that we did before. We've got our sort of tubular piece with the zipper down the middle. And we're just going to turn that inside out. Or, you know, leave it because we sewed it inside out. And instead of sewing it just a little bit folded, like we did for the wet bags, or with sandwich bags or snack bags, we're gonna put this zipper seam right in the middle. Or at least pretty close to the middle. You can make marks if you want to measure it. Also clean up your threads or put some fray stop or whatever you want to do. Or if it was folded under, because you're being more careful than me. Pretty cleaned up. And now we're just going to sew it fairly close to the edge. I'm probably going to do about a 1/2 inch. You could do it less, but I'm just going to do it kind of rough, and then I'm going to clean it up when I'm done. One thing you can do also is at that edge you can put a little bit of like bias tape or fold over elastic to protect the edge, or you could do something like have the edge folded under. If you're doing this kind of fabric, have one side folded under so it's a little bit less raw. But I'm going to do it really simple. And with pull, you don't need to worry about it because pull's no fray. So I'm going to put this back on. I'm just going to sew down with that zipper right in the middle. You could also serge it. But I figured I wanted to do it, you know, so that people who didn't have a serger could do it too. Just be careful when you're going over that zipper. I like to go back and forth a couple times. And I'm going to do another seam just a little bit higher up from that one. Sort of a reinforcement. Just a little bit more. Not necessary, just I want to get that edge pretty done. Oh, you know what I forgot? I'll fix it now. I'm forgetting all sorts of things. Okay, at this point, I'm going to put in my little loops that I made, and I totally forgot. They seam pop just a couple stitches. Doesn't matter because I was going to do that second stitch anyway, so it's just totally fine. My brain is just not on today. Pop that open a little bit. Just a little bit. And I'll go back over that area a couple times. Okay, so I'm going to be putting in my little loops that just with these little pieces of bias tape that I sewed down one side. And just put them and fold them in half, and then set it inwards so that when you turn it, it's sticking outwards. If that makes sense. I'm just going to set it inside there so that it's lined right up with my zipper. It's going to be like a little loop to like hook to a clip-on strap, or you know, whatever you want to do. It's not on every pod that I've seen, but I've definitely seen it on some, so I wanted to do it. Get it kind of centered in there. I'll do the other one better, obviously. Can't believe I ever got that. Okay, let's go again. And I'll go back and forth a couple times here. And then I'll go back up to the line I was working on. That was funny. Okay. So there's a couple of things you can do at this point. You can clean up this edge. You can put, something folded over it to finish it off, like a piece of fold over elastic or something like that. I'm going to open this up a little bit and take a look inside and see how much my seam is actually covered, or if I have any gaps, because I didn't have it lined up perfectly. It looks pretty good. So here, I'll show you what that one looks like, just so you can see. There's the little loop that I put in, so you can clip something to it. See? It's that little loop. Look, a little loop. And I can't believe I almost forgot that. And then it also kind of protects that zipper a little bit. That was funny. If I have any thinner bias tape somewhere. And this piece here. Probably not quite big enough. Oh, it might be big enough. I don't know. I only have one though. I'll just leave it for now. Okay, I'm gonna trim off this edge. I think when I'm done, I'll turn it inside out and clean that up with either some trim or some fold over elastic or something like that. But for now, we're gonna do the other side. And you don't wanna have it zipped up because you need to be able to turn it through the hole. So I have mine a little more than halfway unzipped since it's a fairly thick fabric that I'm using. But if you're using pull, it doesn't have to be open that much, because as long as you can reach your hand inside and turn it. And then I'm gonna take this edge here and I'm just gonna clip it together or pin it together. And then I'm gonna sew it down just like I did on the other side. And before I do that, again, my brain's not with me today. Take my little loop, set it inside, however much you want it to come inside. Also not a necessary step, but if you want to do it, that's when you put it in. Not afterwards like I was doing before, that was silly. Okay, all lined up. Pin it down. What time is it? I'm taking way too long on this. The last part is super quick, so bear with me. Bear with my chaos of a brain today, huh? I'm gonna go a second time. Trim off these extra pieces here. Okay, now we're going to turn it through that hole and take a look at it on the other side. Push out those corners. I'm just doing this so I can show you something, what it looks like at this point, because there's a little trick to popping in the corners. It's kind of like how I did my Among Us plushie, and I pushed in the corners to make the feet square. The same thing. So right now we've got this kind of flat, like garment bag style bag, right? I mean, that's really what it is. It's a garment bag. I hadn't thought about that before, but that's totally what this is. So now you can make your own garment bag. Now, you've got your little loops on the side, you've got your stuff in the middle, and in order to square in those corners, they're going to pop in. So instead of turning it all the way, you just take them and you push them back, and you line up your seam there, wherever you want it to be. I'm going to line it up so that my seams match up, my colors match up on my little pattern there. That's just your little straight line. You can put a pin in, or a clip, or you can just turn it inside out and sort of draw a rough line. But since I'm using an accent fabric, I really want it to line up right there. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to pin it on that point just so that I don't make a mistake and have it not line up. But if you're using one color, you don't even ever have to turn it. You can do this all while it's still inside out, because I'm going to turn it back the other way when I do this. But first, I want to make sure that all my corners are nice and square and line up on my accent fabric. So you pop in those corners. Whether you want it higher or more square, it's just how much you put in that corner there, how much you push it back in again. I'm doing it so that I line up my accent. See, there's my perfect little line there. When I go inside out, I'll fix the bottom part, but I really just want this piece here to line up. And you can do this for like a makeup bag or, you know, hair accessories or whatever you want. It's really just sort of a squared corner bag. If you want to do more precise measurements than I do, it'd probably be easier for you to make sure that you're lining up on your trim piece if you do it this way. If you just do it one color, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to make sure that lines up. And then I'm going to go to the inside. I'm just going to pin it right there. I'll do the other side. So you do it on both sides like that. I'm going to turn it through, and I'm just going to do it by looking at the seam lines. So you pop those corners back out. I couldn't do it exactly by looking at my seam lines because I did one with the hidden seam and one with the top stitched seam. So just to show both styles. If you're coming in late, on this side I did a folded hidden seam, and on the other side I just did a typical just laying it down and did a top stitch seam, just as two options. So they don't mine don't actually match up. But if you're doing it with the same style, then just if you line up those edges, it'll match up. So you take your corner piece here, put it at a little right angle, decide which way you want to fold it. And just this seam here, this little vertical seam here, just has to line up with that seam on the other side. Just want to make sure that it's square. And then I pinned it at the point where I wanted it to be, but you could measure it instead. You could say, I want it this many inches in, and as long as you did that on all your corners, it would end up being, you know, the right proportions. Mine lines up. Yep. Okay, so then I'm going to take it, and I'm just going to sew down that line. I think I'll do it on this side. You could also press it. Like if you could iron it, then you could get a better, you know, it'll have a nicer crease for you to follow. Or you could use a square, like, and make sure that this stays square. But I'm gonna rough it. Mine's gonna be pretty approximate. Take my pin out. And if you're doing this thinner, with just the pull, I'll make a video for it later on, but you'll see that it's a lot easier to get things lined up if you're just using one layer of fabric, or even just two. This is several at this point, right? We're gonna do that on all four corners. And then after they're all done, we're just gonna cut down like the same amount that we had for our other seam. And like I said, you can put some bias tape over it, or you can put some fold-over elastic over it. If you leave it longer, you can do a tucked in edge. I'm gonna do that with my pull version. I'm gonna leave it longer and then fold in the edges and then do another seam. So it's kind of like a false French seam. So I'll leave it like, say, twice this long and then tuck it in like I do at the edge of turning when you close something, and then sewing again so that it's like a little double non-rough edge on the inside. And we'll do that for my video, but for this I'm just playing around. So do all the corners at that same point. If we want to make them the same, we can measure them. I think I have a ruler somewhere. There we go. So I did it at a point where it ends up being, how many? About 18 centimeters, or about almost 6 inches, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 7 inches. We should do that on all our corners, pop them flat, look for that seam line for my accent since I'm lining up my corners. I had it folded to the left, so I'm going to fold to the left again. Make sure my seam lines up. Make sure that my fabric lines up on the inside. There we go. Put it right there. We do the same thing. We'll do it on this side this time. And this is kind of that same thing when we did the what are they called? The miter corners on the napkins. It's not perfect. It'll work. Oh, I forgot something again. I'm so silly. I keep on having this issue. Well, good thing I can pop seams. I'm just totally spacing today. Don't laugh at me, don't laugh at me. I'm just gonna pop this middle because this is where I'm gonna put in my strap. So on one side, you sew it all the way closed, and on the other side, you put in your strap. I can't believe I forgot. You could also cut it before you sew it to make sure that you're sewing against that straight line. That is another option. It does the same effect, right? I can't believe I keep forgetting my straps. So funny. Just open this up a little bit. Okay. So at this point, this is where you have the strap in, just like before. Just like the same issue I did before. Can't teach an old dog new tricks or expect them to be consistent. Okay. So I'm just going to set that in there, make sure it's lined up, and then I'm going to resew. And I just have that right in the middle, or at least fairly close to the middle. Doesn't have to be super precise. Let's try that again, huh? And you could sew it another time in the middle to reinforce that strap, especially if it's going to be carrying heavy things. When I do it with the pull, just folding the pull in again there will reinforce it. Silly me. Okay, let's trim this down. And I'm not bothering to finish mine off. And then on the other side of this side, when we tuck it in, we'll put the strap in. This time we won't forget. So when we fold it like this, we find our point that's at the same, point as the other side. We line up our seams since I have the accent fabric. We fold it facing the same direction downward. You could also sew another seam to lay that flat, but I'm not going to bother. We put our corners lined up, put our seams lined up, check the inside to make sure our fabric lines up. Right there. And then for mine, I'm just going to go and pre-cut this one side since I'm using the straps. So for this one, you could tuck it into your corner there. You don't have to pre-cut it, but since I'm just going to leave it inside out, I'm pre-cutting it. There we go. Kind of rough, but it'll work. And then we're going to put our little strap piece that we made with the rough edge facing, inward, but in this case out because it's all inverse. I'm just going to slide it in there. Slide our little strap in there. Make sure everything lines up nicely. Make sure it's fairly straight. Looks pretty good. You can clip it or pin it in place. What time is it? 3? Okay. Just gonna clip it right there on both sides to hold that in place there. And then we're just gonna sew down it just like the other side. We'll line this one up with the other one. Make sure that my fabric lines up on the inside. Looks nice. And I'm just going to fold them together again, make sure that it's the same as the other corner. Make sure they line up really nicely there. You can see the seam. I'm just going to sew down that one. Yeah, mine looks more like a bowling bag. So I made mine larger because, like I said, mine's going to be for other stuff. But if you make it with you know, a few inches smaller in each direction. Or if you're doing it for, you know, really large size diapers. But mine's a little bit sort of, you know, stockier. It's the same kind of thing though. You could press it if you want to have those sharp corners. You've got these little loops on the sides if you want to connect a strap to it. Use it like a purse or something like that. And then I've got this little side strap that I attach that I can put snaps on and have it, you know, snap to things. So let's find some snaps, huh? Wonder if I have any brown. I've got kind of gold. Wonder if I have any pale bluish. That'd be nice. Like that. What do I want to play with today? Kind of shiny. That's the wrong one. I have way too many snaps. There we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna do 4 caps, 2 sockets, 2 studs. Find my pliers. I think they're in there. Oh, they're there. Okay. And I'm just gonna put one on each side. And this one. And one side, and then we do the other so that it snaps downwards. You get to hear how squeaky my pliers are. And then you can snap it to things. So there's a little strap for the side. Or a little squared out bag. If you're making it like I did where it's just cotton, you can press, increase those. You can finish off the inside with some bias tape if you want. Nice little squared edge. You could make it, you know, taller and narrower, or, you know, shorter and squatter, depending on how you do the corners. So yeah. Anybody have any questions or anything? Or suggestions of things we should do in the future? There's a little inside your little square bag. Turn it inside out here. We'll take a look at the edges. I'm gonna do a sort of fake French seam on the pull when I do that, so we'll do that in my video. I'll do that in my tutorial video, but this one is really rough because I'm just gonna use it for odds and ends. But you can trim it down. You can put some, like if you had like some bias tape or something like that. Let's see, I think I had some somewhere. You could take some bias tape and you could, or some fold over elastic, and you could finish off these edges if you wanted to. Sort of fold it over and sew it down. You can have this nice, you know, finished edge. first do this way, and then when you do this side, it would cut off and you would cover it up. So you could have like a piece that you put across here when you do that part, and then before you cut it, you would cut that off, and then you would fold it flat, and then you would do the other one, and you would have all finished edges on the inside. But I'm not going to worry about that. I think you can get the idea of that. But then for the pull, what we're going to do is we're going to leave this longer, and we're going to tuck it in, and then just do another seam, and that'll finish off the edges there. But yeah, there's a little square rectangular tote is all it really is. Or purse. You can make it narrower and smaller. You can change the angles on the sides here, and you can have it be like narrower at the top than the bottom. So depending on how you fold those little triangles, you could pull the inside in more. And then you could end up having more of that kind of like angled up like Chanel purse kind of cut, if you wanted to make something like that. But if you notice, I did it so that my little accent line lined up here on the sides. Yeah, lots of ways you can make little pods, I guess. It's really just a purse, right? It's just a wider, more rectangular purse. It's cute. It's an interesting structured bag. So yeah, any questions or anybody have any suggestions? It's a little earlier than I usually stop, but we can stop here. You could also, when you're assembling it, you could put like a side pocket on as well. So if you were going to use it to make like a purse or something like that, and you were going to have it angled in, you could have like a little snapping side pocket, you know, where it's sewn down to the edges here. And when you sew it in, it tucks it in, and you have the edge that just, you know, goes over that front piece. So like how I added in this strap here, before sewing up that side seam, if you had it at an angle or whatever, you could sew in that pocket and have it just sewn to this, you know, the one side, and have a finished top and then like a snap, and you could have like a snapping side pocket, or you could have a zipper and have the zipper just sewn to the side here and sewn to the piece, and then when you sew it down, it would all just be only on one side. So yeah, when you do like the structured rectangular bags, there's a lot of different, you know, modifications you could do that are all the same method of sewing. I've seen some of these where they have a seam across the top as well, just to like make it, you know, more obvious that it folds there, I guess. But if I was going to be doing this with pull, I would do the minimum amount of seams, right? So if I was doing this all one color of pull, then the only seams it would have would be these side ones, because the zipper is the only other place. It's one long piece of fabric. So these little side, you know, seams here would be the only place that I'd want to put it. And then the seam around here just on the sides, because that's where the zipper, two sides are sewn together. So you could have your little loop in, you'd have one seam across the sides here, and this kind of H on each side, and nothing on the bottom. So there's no risk of like liquid coming out, I guess, except for on the corners here. But I'm gonna do that little fake French seam there, so shouldn't be too hard. I'll do a video for that soon. But hopefully that gave you an impression, you know, or an idea. And I can just use this as a little, you know, car junk bag. I wonder what I'll put in it. I'm sure I'll have plans. And then I could use the wet bag for kayaking gear. We like to do sit on top kayaking on the lake and stuff, so that'll be fun. We'll have a new gear bag. So yeah, I'll make the pull one in diaper dimensions, so it's a little narrower. It's not the same height, but a little narrower than this one. And look for that video in the next week or so. And I'm currently working on redoing my patterns for print. I've got, I think, 19 of the 30 some redone right now. I'll continue putting those up, but if you check out my downloads page, there should be several of them that have been sort of updated to look more like the projector-friendly files. And if there's anything else you want to see modified on those, like if you want, you know, a key on what line does what, or if there's any questions that you have with those, let me know. And if there are any other ideas that you have for things you want me to make, or if you want to, you know, get some more ideas for other types of creations, I think that, you know, I'd love to help you out. I'd love to find new fun things to do. So yeah, hopefully that was fun. Hopefully you guys got some ideas. Well, little funny squared bag here. yeah, so that was sewing, so I guess it's a happy sewing one, huh? Anybody have any questions? No? Well, I'll see you guys next time, huh? Take care.